Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about pull-ups, of course. And we all know pull-ups have been a staple for bodybuilders and bodybuilding enthusiasts to grow their back, and for good reason. They can be a great back builder. However, they have come under more scrutiny recently from kind of the biomechanics field that maybe the pull-up isn't the best movement for a wide back, and there are better movements to choose. And so I think there's an element of truth with both of these. I don't think it is this movement that you absolutely must do for a thick, wide back, but ultimately it's also a great tool to really develop a wide back and hit the lats really well. The key is that you use that tool appropriately, like any tool. So that's what we're going to be going over today, how to make the pull-up great again for the lats. So what's the problem? Why isn't it always great for the lats? And that really comes down to using it inappropriately or using it in a way that it more so makes other muscles within the back the primary movers and not the lats specifically. So we can make it more lat biased. Obviously many muscle groups can be involved within these movements, many of the back musculature, but a lot of the time people do pull-ups, they make it very upper back focused. And what they end up doing is, especially if you take a wide grip, so arms out nice and wide, pronated, and then you try and pull up, it's going to be really hard to use the lats very well, and it's going to be really easy to use a lot of the upper back musculature. So a lot of people, when they come over to do pull-ups, they really allow their upper back to round over, they really come out wide, and they have elbows flared and they pull out here, versus the appropriate way to do it for the lats, which I'm going to talk about. So to understand how to try and perform a movement specifically for a given muscle, you kind of want to understand some basic anatomy for that muscle and the functions of that muscle, which is where the biomechanics guys, let's put it that way, are coming from, in that they have an understanding the insertion is on the humerus, it's like in and around up here, and then the origin is on the spinal column, and so the lats are coming round the rib cage. And so by that, you want to try and get the muscles nice and long, particularly lengthening is very important, which we'll come on to later. Then you want to bring them short to some extent. So that's what we're focusing on, but then also the role of the lat. So what does the lats do? Shoulder extension, so it's bringing the arm down by our side, and then also adduction, so it's trying to pull the arm in, the upper arm into our body, basically. So you're kind of thinking this sort of motion, right? Or even a head like a row, that can also be a motion. Then that's how we can kind of bias movements to lats. I think a lot of you guys watching this will be aware that keeping the arms in and close to the body, which normally necessitates a neutral grip, is going to hit the lats really well, which is why that kind of pronated grip with elbows high and wide maybe isn't the best, because that's not kind of directly biasing the lats as we talked about just now. So really, I've given you the answer now. How do we use the pull-up tool correctly to train the lats? We want arms really in and close by our sides, which is important because that's going to get a nice lengthening as well. When we're wide out here, we're not getting quite as lengthened, so we're coming in here. So neutral is also pretty good, because pronated here kind of sucks, right? It doesn't feel great on the wrists, it just doesn't align very well, whereas we're in this nice neutral grip position, and then we're thinking pulling our upper arm down to basically our hips, because that's the lower point of where the lats originate, and so that's going to be really, really good. So you're thinking elbows in and also pulling round, right? So you're trying to almost tuck the elbow down into that position. That's going to train the lats super well. And you might be like, Steve, but why do we need to do a pull-up? Like, I can do that same motion with a pull down, and maybe even these other movements that have come out where I can get even more into a lengthened position because I can do it single arm and things like this. And I think that's totally fair. I view all exercises as tools in your toolbox. Pull-ups can definitely be one of them for your lats. I hadn't done pull-ups in ages, so the videos you're seeing now are like some pull-ups that I've been doing recently. And I had in my program literally that, a single arm neutral grip pull down. But I was just like, hey, that's getting a little bit stale. I want to rotate something in. Haven't done pull-ups in ages. It's kind of fun, exciting. I think that's one of the kind of pros of pull-ups, right? They're fun, exciting. They're kind of one of those core lifts like bench press, squats that we often talk about. And I think it definitely can be a productive lift. Now, one of the major pros with pull-ups is it's so accessible. I can't really think of any of my clients, even if they're training from home, that can't do pull-ups. But lat pull downs, not always easily accessible. So I think pull-ups are fantastic for that reason. It's just most gyms will have the ability to do pull-ups. Even if you're at home or you have very limited equipment, you can normally find somewhere to do pull-ups. You can buy a pull-up bar for barely any money. I actually had one during the lockdowns. And then they're actually really easy to microload, so long as you have a dip belt, basically. If you have a dipping belt, which don't cost very much, you can easily microload them with 1.25 plates, assuming you have those as well, which I think make them a really great tool as a movement in your toolbox. So I'm just going to go over like some key points about pull-ups to make them even better for you, or potentially even better and more hypertrophic. Is that, like most pulling movements, they are hardest where we're weakest. So the hardest in this short, fully contracted position, and the easiest in that fully lengthened position where we're strongest. And also, given the literature that's coming out on range of motion and how that pertains to muscle hypertrophy, it seems that lengthened stretch is really important for growth. We haven't had the back directly, or the lats specifically, directly looked at yet. I don't know if we ever will, but it makes sense that it will translate to other muscle groups. And I think we can all kind of feel that stimulus being really good when we get into that deep stretch position. So there becomes an opportunity here there's something lots of us do with pulling movements, and I've done in the past. And you can think of this with pull-ups, where you start using a bit of body English, maybe your hips start coming forward, you start jerking your legs a little bit to help you get into that short position, because you're like, I've got more in the tank, because that bottom position's like quote unquote easy, but this short position, god damn, I can't get up there, so you kind of start jerking. So that's something you can do to get more effective reps, essentially, I guess, but I don't know if it's the best way. Better would be to just let your range of motion drop off as you go through, so you start full ROM and then you let your range of motion gradually drop off. My preference, and as you're seeing in these video clips, I'm just doing purely length and partials. So I'm coming up to a 90-degree bend in my arm, which is like, I don't know, around 50% of the range of motion. So I'm cutting off that short position so I can spend more time in that lengthened position. You'll find you're substantially stronger here, or you can do substantially more reps. And yeah, I think it's just wise to do that with this motion versus just cutting it once you're doing full ROM. Then another thing to understand is it's really important to track your body weight. So I said microloading. Your microloading could just be your off-season or your gaining phase, where you're slowly gaining half a pound or so on a week-to-week basis. So bear in mind your body weight is the main load that you're pulling up. So do track that. I just take a morning weigh-in and use that as my kind of rough guideline of where I'm at with my body weight for that session. And if you're dieting, it can actually lull you into a false sense of security, where you think you're getting really strong and you're progressing really nicely, but if you're losing a pound, 2 pounds on the week, god damn, that's a lot of weight to not then be pulling. It's kind of like regressive underload, right? So you've got to pay attention to that too, and maybe make up for that weight loss by adding some load. I think that's a really important thing. And then just a no-brainer, if you don't know this, definitely make sure to use straps so your limiting factor isn't your grip. Especially when you're doing something like length and partials. I'm using over 40 kilos here in addition to my body weight. It's a lot of weight. If I didn't have straps, and my limiting factor would probably be my grip, and that's no good. I want to make sure my back musculature is my limiting factor. So do you guys use pull-ups? I'd be interested to know in the comments what your favorite movements for training the lats. Have pull-ups always been something that you've used? Has this video, I don't know, maybe taught you something new about how to go about doing pull-ups specifically for the lats? No problem. You can also do them for the upper back. You can do them to hit a bunch of the muscles up there. It's just understanding how to approach a movement to try and hit the muscles you're trying to hit. A lot of people do pull-ups for the back muscles, but specifically the lats and width. And I don't think they're always doing them as well as they could be. So guys, if this has been helpful, do let me know. And I'll always try and remind you at the end, online coaching is what we do here at Revive Stronger. It's what I spend most of my time doing. I review form videos all the time for my clients. Spend a lot of time, hours each week, reviewing form videos so they can get them done to the best of the ability to train the muscles they're trying to train, so they can be as efficient with their training as possible. So if you're interested in that, that's always linked in the description. Otherwise, guys, I'll catch you in the next one.